It's 420 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is right here. So hello and welcome to the Cannabis Show. My name, producer Vince. His name, Ricardo Baca.
Hey, Vince, I am Ricardo Baca. You're Vince Chandler. Good to see you, man.
We've got the basics.
Thank you for that, my friend. And to everybody at home, welcome to the Cannabist Show, where we talk about all things weed.
Hashtag all things weed.
That is the serious marijuana news and the fun stuff as well. In fact, if you go right now to your computer, log on to thecannabist.co. You can read stories about a Colorado marijuana company securing a patent for its weed gel.
Weed hair gel, I hope.
Not quite, but about Colorado's massive 420 rally, which is actually happening in late May.
They should have called it More 20.
And about different municipalities in Colorado and Oregon that once just said no to legal pot, but are now reconsidering.
And some that are still saying no.
Producer Vince, how you doing, man?
You know, I'm a little relaxed still from Yoga with a View last weekend. We're going to talk about it later, so I'm not going to bore you with it now, but I think loosey-goosey Vince can get into this. How are you doing, Ricardo?
I know, dude. You know me. I'm a fan of getting a little high, doing some yoga, stretching it out, and just kind of reconnecting with myself. It all works, you know, and I'm excited to talk about this Yoga with a View because young producer Vince created a really lovely video. We're going to show you a clip of it, and we're going to show you where you can see the whole thing. But before then, Vince, are you ready for the week in weed?
If the week in weed ends with us showing that beautiful warm video, then I am so ready for it, dude. Let's do it.
All right. We are starting this week in weed in the great state of California, where medical marijuana patients are starting to wonder, can I get evicted for smoking legal weed inside my rental property?
You know, that's a valid question, Ricardo. Even here in Colorado, when I first moved into my first place on Colorado Boulevard in Denver, I faced the threat of eviction for smoking pot in my own home.
I remember, yeah.
It was crazy. They were like, you can't smoke cigarettes. We're a non-smoking building that carries over into marijuana. They had a wonderful little alleyway right off of Colorado Boulevard where I was free to go get stoned and not feel safe and be super paranoid, but that wasn't quite feeling it. So I moved. A lot of people don't have that option, dude.
You know, that's right. And now it's California's turn because lawmakers in Sacramento are considering a new bill that would allow landlords the right to evict tenants who smoke marijuana inside those rental properties. In fact, the assemblyman who presented the bill cited recent research from the University of California, San Francisco that, quote, suggests that secondhand cannabis smoke results in similar cardiovascular effects as tobacco smoke, and in fact may result in as much as a 70% drop in blood vessel function, end quote.
That's scary, dude. The current language of the bill would allow medical pot patients to use edibles or capsules, and cannabis advocates have requested that it include an exemption for vaporizer use. But we'll see if that ends up getting adopted.
Exactly. You know, it's worth saying that landlords in California already have the authority to prohibit tenants from smoking tobacco in these rentals, just like Colorado, as Vince mentioned.
Yep, and this bill would just add, you know, weed to that list, bro.
Now, elsewhere in the Week in Weed, we are going to take you to one of those municipalities I mentioned earlier. It's a suburb of Denver that had previously banned recreational marijuana sales, but was reconsidering that ban.
Of course, you're talking about Littleton, which is a cute, small, tiny little suburb just to the south of here. And while they allow medical marijuana sales, retail sales are very much illegal there still.
And the city council met this week to discuss an interesting proposal that would have allowed recreational pot sales, and more than 50 residents showed up to voice their support and concerns. And a 17-year-old high school student told the city council, quote, I don't want to have to move out of the place I love because of the influx of use and abuse. I don't want to raise kids where buying a drug is easy, end quote.
It's a pretty precarious thing to say in a city that is littered with liquor stores. People, here's a reminder. It is 2016.
And I love these 2016 reminders, so hit it, Vince.
Alcohol is a drug. And it's also a significantly more dangerous and addictive drug than marijuana. That's a fact.
You are speaking the truth, Vincent. And at the end of this Littleton meeting, which included multiple representatives from a pot shop chain, a very big pot shop chain called the Green Solution, speaking on behalf of the recreational sales, the elected leaders voted down the retail sales 5-1.
And to each their own, of course. That's one of the strengths of the Colorado model that I love, local control. That said, I did appreciate what Councilman Doug Clark has to say, and he was the sole yes vote. He said that Littleton's voters' decision more than 3 years ago to pass Amendment 64 compelled him to carry out, quote, the will of the people from an elected official. Imagine that.
The will of the people. There you go. Vince, lastly in the Weekend Weed, we're going to do some yoga. You know, I wanted to share some of the awesome work Vince did for this site and the show this week. He and I went up to Mason Jar Events' latest Yoga with a View event, where attendees got blissfully stoned. They meditated, they practiced yoga, and they partook in a champagne brunch, and it was such a blast.
And Ricardo, we've had Mason Jar's Kendall Norris on the show before, so it was great seeing her again, even if it was 8:30 in the morning.
So early, so early. Vince, your video is stunning, dude. I got to give you props because, well, screw it. Let's just roll a clip from it really quick. This is Vince Chandler's take on Yoga with a View.
I think that weed and yoga are like peas and carrots. So they are such a nice combination, especially when you can find a strain that will really allow you to sort of go deep. And I think that's what we've got with our initial strain, which is Sanctuary.
And Vince, that is stunning work, my friend. Bravo, congratulations.
I appreciate the kind words, but warm light, great music, and a cool event will make good video no matter who's shooting it, bro. So it was great to be there. It was great to put it together, and I can't wait to, go out and shoot the next pot video for us, bro.
Well, it takes a little bit more work than you're giving it credit for, but I appreciate that. Vince, it is time to bring out our first guest. He is one of the busiest attorneys in the legal cannabis space, making his second appearance on the couch. Please help me in welcoming Sean McAllister to the Cannabist Show. Hey, man. How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you, too. I haven't seen you since 420.
Did we see each other that day? I can't quite remember. Oh, that's right, yeah.
We saw each other that night.
Right, that's right, we did. Yeah.
We went to a comedy show at the Oriental Theater where the headliners
Where'd they go?
Too messed up to even perform and just disappeared.
Another Maureen Dowd moment. I mean, come on, people. Haven't we learned by now? Start slow and go. Start low and go slow.
Exactly.
It's pretty easy.
I've heard that that's not how it went. Because backstage they should not stock that edibles bar, the dab bar, probably as well as they did.
Well, the best thing is other great Denver comics like Sam Talent showed up to fill in, and apparently they did a makeup show. But this is part of learning what marijuana is all about, is learning you can't eat the whole candy bar. You can't eat the whole cookie.
So funny, man. And we actually had Sam Talent as a guest. He's going to be on a very recent Cannabis show. Isn't he great?
Oh, I had him at our Halloween party a couple years ago. He is the best comic in Denver, and I'm so mad he's moving to Vegas. Because come on, people.
We didn't even talk about that.
Apparently they get the big bucks in Vegas. Little old Denver. You can't compete.
Oh, man. Little Denver. What's legal weed?
Right.
Sean.
Yes, sir.
Hard questions first.
Oh, yes.
Are you a sativa or an indica man?
I am definitely a sativa guy. I'm a, an intellectual. I like to, work in the brain. That's my day-to-day. And you would think I wouldn't want to do that, but I find sativas both relaxing and stimulating. I don't want to sit on the couch. I want to go take a hike, get outside, do something active. So sativa all the way.
I dig it, dude. I dig it. I'm the same way. And for the same reasons.
Yeah.
Sean, to more serious subjects, we talked about this on last week on the show. This is the first wrongful death lawsuit against the marijuana industry. If you've been following the Cannabist, if you live in Denver, you've heard of this very now famous case where a man, Richard Kirk, killed his wife. He had a small amount of marijuana in his system when they checked it.
Yep.
And now the family of his wife is suing not only the pot shop that sold the edibles to Richard Kirk, but also the marijuana company that made the edibles. And you're representing them. That's Gaia's Garden. And, you know, you obviously spoke with our colleague Jordan Steffen last week for that story, and I'd absolutely recommend you check it out if you haven't already. But Sean, what's your take? What's Gaia's Garden's take on this story?
Well, let me give you the two-part answer. The very official, formal lawyer answer would be, you know, we're going to vigorously defend this attempt to shift responsibility from a mentally ill murderer to a substance that's safer than alcohol and doesn't cause violence. That's the very formal, official answer. But can I go off, Ricardo?
Yeah.
I mean,
please.
Are you kidding me? It's 2016, like you said in the intro. Does somebody not know that marijuana impairs you? It's 2016. That people claiming this is proof the marijuana industry is a problem. There are 3 bad cases in the last 4 or 5 years related to marijuana. This guy killed his wife, some kid jumped off a balcony, and some kid in Summit County shot himself, and his parents blamed marijuana. In those 4 years, how many tens of thousands of alcohol deaths and assaults and murders have happened in this state? And people that point to these 3 cases and say this is proof that marijuana legalization isn't working, it's exactly the opposite conclusion. This is proof that it isn't a problem. You can only name 3 cases in the last 4 years of this kind of situation. And as I said, this is a seriously mentally ill man. Mental illness causes violence. Instability.
And
Marijuana
has that mental
does not do
illness
that.
been proven in Richard Kirk?
This man was psychologically evaluated, and he's borderline schizophrenic. He's borderline psychotic. I mean, the idea that marijuana probably could have kept him from killing somebody. It certainly didn't cause it. And the base argument in that case is that the labeling wasn't sufficient. Well, let me say this about marijuana labeling. It said in 2014 marijuana could have adverse health effects. What more labeling do you want? That's what alcohol says. This may have adverse health effects. We don't hold somebody responsible. We don't hold Budweiser responsible when somebody gets a DUI and runs over somebody. We don't hold a gun manufacturer responsible when somebody kills somebody with a gun. We don't hold a ski resort responsible when you fall and break your leg at a ski resort, because guess what? It's an inherently dangerous activity. And the idea that somebody doesn't know marijuana impairs them when it says it on the label, let's be honest. This is ambulance chasing plaintiffs' attorneys looking for a payday. That's what it's about. It's about money. And this company is going to defend it on behalf of the industry, and we're going to win this case. It's frivolous litigation that has no chance of winning. And everybody says, isn't the industry scared of this? No, we're not scared of frivolous litigation, just like we weren't scared of the pesticide litigation where they sued Livewell. That was thrown out of court. The case against the gun manufacturers for the Aurora shooting was thrown out of court. I mean, we strongly believe the exact same thing's going to happen here.
Well, it's a very, very sad story, but I mean, you're right. You're coming at it from the perspective. Our colleague Jordan spoke with you for that story, and she also spoke with University of Denver law professor Sam Kamen, who made that same point. If somebody over-ingests alcohol, do we hold the bar or the vodka company responsible? And he said, no, we don't. And for that reason, I don't think this lawsuit stands a very good chance. But it's fascinating still. I mean, this is kind of the first of its kind. Right?
There's no doubt. I mean, it is definitely a tragedy, and definitely the company is very sympathetic with what happened to this woman and the 3 kids that are left without a mother. And it's part of a broader societal tragedy, which is we have very poor mental health counseling in this country, very poor funding of mental health. Obamacare did just include funding for mental health treatment, but Colorado is consistently ranked to the bottom in drug treatment, mental health funding. When we want to talk about what needs to happen to make this state a better place, putting edible companies out of business, or this law that's going to limit potency on all marijuana, including edibles, those are not the solutions. There's a few people with bad mental illness that need help and treatment, and right now Colorado ignores that for the most part. So there's other solutions, and people are always looking for a scapegoat, and there is one. It's the murderer sitting in jail right now. So I think it is a fascinating issue. It's causing all of us to go out there and get products liability insurance. The great news is, the insurance industry really has been dealing with this and working with us, and there is products liability coverage. So there's a lot of things companies can do, and they are doing, writing those contracts so that when the seller sells the marijuana, it's decided who would have responsibility if somebody sues you. And so this is part of the maturation of the industry, and we're looking forward to continuing to get this right, because it's not going anywhere. Marijuana is going to be here for a long time.
Certainly looks like it, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, switching gears.
Yeah.
We're going to go across the street from where we're at right now.
Okay.
To the state capitol, where the session wrapped last week, and I have one question from this recently wrapped session, and that is about residency. Okay, cool. So now people outside of Colorado for the first time can invest and own these marijuana businesses.
Yeah.
Tell me how this changes the game. Yeah. Is it big? Is it small? How substantial is this?
Ricardo, it's huge. Let me tell you. Sorry, I had to do it. Because, look, they said it was an election year and the legislature wouldn't get anything done. Are you kidding me? These people are on steroids with regards to marijuana, and we actually got big things done. I mean, that was the exciting thing this year. That's
a big one.
Oh, year after year, we get dumb laws, stupid solutions that don't have a problem. But this year, we actually got a solution to a problem, which is, people say, aren't the marijuana businesses so rich? Why do they need any money? Are you kidding me? Most of my clients pay over 100% taxation. Whatever they make, they pay more in taxes than what they make. They're constantly changing with the rules. They constantly have to compete with these big players and having to build out new grows, and they're actually constantly cash strapped. I mean, lots of dreams have been broken in this industry because they didn't have the money to go to the next level.
It's a very good point, because I think a lot of people just automatically assume that people are raking it in if they own a license of any kind. That's not the case.
Maybe the top 10% are really killing it, but the middle 50 are just making a little bit of money, and the bottom 30 are really struggling or not doing well at all. So this is going to, for the first time, allow what is in every other industry allowed. And actually, the Colorado Constitution says you should not discriminate against out-of-state people for property rights. And I was preparing a lawsuit on behalf of a client that in some ways it would have been better for me if they didn't pass this thing, because I know we could have won that lawsuit. But we're really thrilled the legislature did this. So, I talk about only in marijuana. And as a lawyer, we have agreements that only in marijuana do you have a deal where an investor can't be an owner. And this is the first time where that's going to be allowed. I think there are some downsides to that. I mean, we are going to see some more consolidation of the industry.
Sure, that's inevitable, right?
But we are going to get an influx of capital that's going to allow this industry to mature. I mean, I think you've seen there's been some raids in the last couple weeks of people and pesticide problems. All these are because people are cutting corners and don't have the funding to do it right. And we're really hopeful that this is going to bring in the level of sophistication needed to comply with this crazy regulatory regime that really regulates marijuana like plutonium. I mean, this is not like alcohol. It's like plutonium.
Sure.
So this is a great
big
thing.
News. Oh, residency requirements, big news.
And I think the handwriting's on the wall for California. I just got licensed in California.
You passed the bar.
Pat my chest and say,
man.
I think I'm the only major Colorado lawyer that's both a California and a Colorado lawyer now.
So when does the San Francisco Silicon Valley office open?
Everybody thinks that. There's too many lawyers in San Francisco. I'm looking Southern California. You can surf, you can hang out. San Diego, less traffic than LA. So you probably find me in San Diego quite a bit, but the point is on residency, California also has this residency restriction, and we're very hopeful that Oregon just dropped the residency restriction, Colorado just dropped the residency restriction, and hopefully California will also, or again, lawyers like me are going to have to litigate it, because this concept that, we can't have somebody from New York own a Colorado or California company is only in marijuana, and it's silly, and I think it's going to go away.
Well, it seems like the dominoes are falling, at least with residency requirements across the country, as you said.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
We're excited. We have a little bit of breaking news on the Cannabist Show with you, Sean, this week. Today, I got an email from one of your clients.
Oh, that's right. Breaking news, yeah.
Open Vape, a massive, probably one of the largest cannabis companies in Colorado, without a doubt, right?
The largest vaporizer and one of the largest edible companies in the country, absolutely.
So they're selling in 9 states, Jamaica.
International presence, yeah.
So they just told me that they are making a play for the naming rights of Mile High Stadium, which, for anybody who doesn't live here, it's where the Denver Broncos play. And, of course, we had a big... I don't know if it was an April Fool's joke because the dispensary swears that it wasn't, but a dispensary group locally on April 1 told us, hey, we're going to buy the naming rights for Mile High, and we made some calls and still don't quite know if that was serious or not.
It
but
was
now
an April
Open
Fool's
Vape,
joke, yeah.
Open Vape making the play. Of course, the previous existing a company that had those naming rights, Sports Authority, is going through a very sad bankruptcy, but you represent Open Vape. So tell us what the plans are. Where are you at? What's going on?
Well, yeah, that Native Roots announcement was an April Fool's joke, but the Open Vape announcement to have the naming rights, Open Vape Field at Mile High, is a very serious proposal. A company with $100 million a year in revenue or more is clearly in a position to pay the $6 or $8 million a year it's going to cost to own those naming rights. And what would be more perfect than Open Vape at Mile High? You can be a mile high at Mile High. And what better represents the city of Denver than one of our most successful businesses that employs thousands of people, hundreds or thousands of people. So, I mean, look, where it's at right now is that the whole case is in bankruptcy court.
Sure.
But what I can say at this point is that Open Vape has sent a letter to the Denver Broncos, the Municipal Stadium Authority, and Sports Authority, and in the context of the bankruptcy proceeding, asking to buy those naming rights. And of course, you saw the news today that the Denver Broncos said, well, no one can sell that without our permission. But this is really caught up in bankruptcy court, and it depends on what Sports Authority says, because they may they have a role in deciding who gets to buy these rights, and they may try to keep them or spin them off, or and the bankruptcy trustee has a role. So all we can say right now is that Open Vape is serious about this, and they're ready to pay the money to have those naming rights. And I think it would be a great success for the city of Denver, because that represents that. Look at how marijuana has been successful, and look at the success story of Denver. And look at the success story of this company that's nationwide.
It's fascinating. I mean, the fact that this conversation is even happening is so interesting. But tell me this, because I was working with my colleague Alicia on April 1st, looking into would the NFL even allow that to happen? And we just did a very cursory look around the league, and it doesn't seem like they have any alcohol sponsors, no Bud Light, Field, or Coors or something like Major League Baseball does. But so tell me, do you even know if this is possible?
Well, the important
rules?
thing to actually remember about the company Open Vape is that it is not directly in the business of selling marijuana. Open Vape licenses the name and it produces the product, but the vaporizer pen itself. But then it sells that to wholesalers who infuse it with the marijuana. So actually, Open Vape is not strictly or technically a marijuana company.
That's getting some pretty
that's getting down
technicalities,
there in the weeds.
But I see what you're saying.
They are a manufacturer of vaporizer pens, and you know, the thing about the NFL is, first of all, they have kind of stuck their head in the sand on this issue, but it does seem like more and more players are coming out saying that the NFL needs to change its policy. I know, for example, that the league is very lax on its testing. It sort of announces the marijuana testing date in advance, and as long as people don't smoke within the few weeks of that test, that I mean, they're sort of
sometimes
tacitly,
they do. Sometimes they,
unless you're tweeting about it the day before, right?
Well, yeah, that, or if people are in habitual trouble, they might get a random test. But you know, I think in practice, the NFL is trying to walk both sides of the path here, and it really is wrapped up in federal legality, and hopefully we can continue to pressure Congress and make this, you know, legal if it's legal at the state level, and then companies like the NFL will not have such an issue. But I think they've been slow to come around. I mean, you know, players need to be able to use a medicine that's safer than alcohol and doesn't addict them like get them addicted like opiates, and the NFL, I think, is going to see that wisdom, and hopefully eventually we'll have a real free market and the naming rights. Imagine that.
Imagine
only in
that.
Marijuana.
Oh my God! If that ends up happening, I mean, me and Vince are always talking about the Broncos on the show. We're big fans, and if that ends up happening, that would be a monumental shift. I mean, you know, we were talking about it earlier. It's been a creep up until now, but what happens, I mean, it has to push the conversation forward if that business's name is suddenly on that giant football stadium that holds 78,000 people down the road. So,
I mean, we have major international companies saying, get ready before 420 with Tostitos or whatever. Totinos.
Pizza rolls, yeah.
So, I mean, you know, major international companies are not shying away. And even our governor has seemed to change his attitude. So we're hopeful that all these institutions will do like the governor and eventually come around to admit the truth that it's not a problem.
Sean, we're going to talk with you some more here in a few minutes.
All right,
I'm so glad you joined us again.
You.
It's always fun.
All right, thanks. Thank you.
Now on to our next segment, where I will throw to our very own wizard of weed, Professor Pat, for this week's new entry in the new Cannabist lexicon.
Kush. There are two distinct varieties of Kush that exist in the cannabis arena, and their relationship is a somewhat disputed issue. The first type is the traditional Hindu Kush, which refers to the hardy, wide-leaved stout varieties which originated in the Afghani-Pakistani mountain region. The second type is the OG Kush, which is an American hybrid known for its distinctive lemon pledge fuel aroma and may contain genetics of the traditional Kush somewhere in its makeup. Overall, though, OG varieties certainly have a distinct sativa influence, which can be seen in their lanky, wide internode growth structure. To hear that in a sentence, I like OG Kush better than Bubba Kush, but I like Bubba better than Master Kush, and Master Kush better than Hindu Kush.
Thank you for that, Professor Pat. Now our next guest is making his first appearance on the show. He's behind one of the most visible cannabis-centric social media sites out there, and it's my pleasure to welcome Hi There's Mitch Lane to the Cannabist Show. Mitch. Hey man, such a pleasure meeting you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I super appreciate you coming out. And you're based in Denver, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we call it Hi There headquarters here in the Mile High City.
Oh, is it? Nice.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But I thought the company was based elsewhere.
Yeah, we have a remote office based in Florida, and we have other members of the company that are out in Seattle and New York as well, but different places for sure.
Well, this has been a particularly interesting facet of legalization, is this expansion of weed into social media. We've talked a lot about it on this show, especially how mainstream social media has kind of waged a war on legal marijuana, and we'll get into that. But first, what is Hi There? What's the primary use? Why are people going on Hi There right now?
Good question. Two levels. I think the fun level is we're a virtual smoking room for the cannabis enthusiasts worldwide. A place for people to come discover each other, their community, a place to connect with each other, and then a place to truly share their experiences and things that they find beautiful on its very fun, simple level. On a bigger level, I think we're a social platform for change. I think we give the user and the community a voice, maybe for one of the first times in history. I think we have amassed a number of users around the world that are all telling us interesting things about what they'd like from the industry, what they'd like from government, what they'd like from the community itself. So on two levels, we're small and fun. On a bigger one, we're a little bit bigger mission.
I like it. Okay. Producer Vince just very kindly reminded me I forgot to ask you an incredibly important question. And Mitch, that is...
I was wondering.
Indica or sativa, my friend? Where are you at?
We call those Hi There problems, is what we call those. I'm an indica. I have plenty of energy. And,
we have a sativa and indica on the couch. I like it. I like it when this happens.
Balanced on the new couch.
So yeah, I go indica for lots of reasons, but mostly it's just to stay pretty steady.
Okay. You find that it more levels you out because you do have that energy?
Yeah, it gives me a chance to stay real high energy, but pretty focused and pretty calm at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds like an indica.
Yeah.
All right. Well, back to Hi There. You know, we've had the Mass Roots guys on our couch before. We've had a couple others, but I'm curious, how does Hi There compare to the rest of the 420 friendly social media fold?
Hi There is different in the sense that we really transcend the space. We provide a full circle in a social experience.
Full circle. What do you mean there?
Many of the other networks are very typical in a specific niche. in one particular focus, and we'll leave those as what they are.
Sure.
But our Hi There community tells us that we offer a matching process where people can connect one-to-one. They can also connect one-to-many. And we also offer a full social feed, which is educational, interesting, shared pictures of people just partaking, whatever it is. We get a lot of people sharing educational links, things they're trying to help the community. So we're really a full circle. We offer that individual thing, but we also offer a full many-to-many social feed as well.
Oh, sure. Okay. So how does it work? I know social media, kind of the basis of it is us connecting as individuals, but oftentimes the money-making portion of it is websites like the Cannabist or companies like Sean's law firm coming on and creating our own accounts on there and then interacting with others that way. So do you guys have that business aspect as well?
We do, for sure. We have a new feature last couple of months that we call Daily Joints. It's our social feed, and it's also a direct opportunity for advertising to reach a one-to-one marketing campaign directly with the user.
Oh, sure.
They get to connect and interact and actually use that as the platform for ongoing purchases, et cetera. So we do it in a very subtle, Hi There way, but it is definitely a presence for our network.
And you're the chief technical officer, and so of course you know all of this speak that some of our users might not be familiar with, but give us that example from the experience of a user. What does that interface look and feel like when they're going on Daily Joints?
It looks very much like a Facebook, Twitter type of feed. You know, it's very much of a typical social feed where you can, we call it throwing bud on something if you like the joint.
Sure.
You can take a hit and comment if you want to make a post against the joint. It's very friendly, very familiar. And then a business account, we call it, actually partakes as a real user in the network. Our users are against advertisements. They will speak up about it. But if a business comes in and plays as a true personified account and then speaks with a value message to our users accept it very willingly.
Right. It is about that added value, and that makes sense.
Yep.
But let's talk about the larger space of social media as a whole. I'm sure you're familiar with the many issues that a lot of these companies that we're talking about on this show have had with their Facebook and their Twitter and their Instagram accounts getting shut down by the corporation itself. Technically, it's against the law federally. They don't want any role in that conversation. And so, can you talk about that and how that limits a business, and also how Hi There might be able to open up a door for some of these businesses?
For sure. Locally here, we hear it all the time that businesses really don't know how to communicate to the community. And they can't. And then they go as far as saying that they're actually a little bit fearful to do it in other mainstream plays. Hi There acts as a singular outlet for all of those mainstream plays. What we like to communicate is that Taco Bells are speaking to the masses in a subliminal message with a munchie box. Or Chipotle talks about the best thing they've ever rolled, or things that are rolled like this are typically illegal, right, to paraphrase their language.
Sure, yeah,
they're speaking
it's very
subliminally.
Subtle.
Yeah. We give them a direct avenue to a community that they don't have to speak publicly as advertising. They can come in as a digital publication and speak directly to our community. It's a really big deal for the mainstream player.
And so are you hearing from marijuana industry players that they're at least glad that they know that you're never going to take down their site because they're posting photos of cannabis or of use?
Absolutely. And it's a big freedom. They feel the freedom to come communicate just as they would in any other space. And we've got some pretty good teammates behind us telling us that we're doing the right thing. And that means a lot to us. We try to take a responsible networking approach. So the things that we do communicate out, we want to make sure are valid. And we think we're on the right track.
Ah, cool. Well, congratulations. I look forward to spending more time on it. I must admit, there's just so little time in the day that I know all of them peripherally, but as Sean was saying earlier before we started, how difficult is it already to keep up all of these social media accounts, and then you add more social media on top of the mix?
It's easy. Hi There is my only social media now. I've deleted all.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's my mainstream media. It'll just be the same for you soon enough.
Nice. All right. We'll have you back. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
I want to bring Sean back into the conversation. Question for both of you, because you heard Vince and I talking earlier about the vote last night in Littleton, Colorado, the vote this week. And that 17-year-old girl, she's a student at Regis High School here in Denver area. She said she doesn't want to, quote, raise kids where buying a drug is easy. I want your guys' thoughts on this. Sean, what do you think about the city's situation, but also this young woman's reasoning?
I think the city is definitely going against the will of the people, like the one council person who voted in favor of lifting the ban. How many times do they have to hear that the voters are okay with this before they follow suit? I think it's a lot of timid politicians that think there's going to be a negative consequence, even though the majority of their voters have supported it. So, but you know, they also, this young girl's comments, I mean, the bottom line is that the facts are otherwise. I guess you can, you know, you can have your own opinion, but you can't have your own facts, which is teen use has not gone up in Colorado. It's stayed steady. It's kind of blipped up and down, but we haven't seen some dramatic increase. And as far as marijuana being easy to get, I mean, yeah, it is easy to get. You could go 10 minutes away from Littleton into Edgewater, or Inglewood or Denver and get marijuana there. And, you know, we've always said, finally with legalization, we're having the right discussion. If young people are getting marijuana, there's somebody giving it to them, and that's the crime. But just an adult possessing marijuana by itself is not a crime. So it's sad. We always hear these arguments, but, you know, another town is missing out on the tax dollars. And I guess that's sad also, because they're going to miss out on jobs and tax dollars. And it's clearly the wrong choice. All you do when you make it illegal in your town for adults to have it is you get more grows in homes closer to kids. So is that what they want?
Sure, yeah.
I think it has the exact opposite result as what they want.
Well, it's interesting. I put this on Twitter today, and it went on fire. One person, a friend of mine who writes for the Cannabist, he was on this couch probably 6 months ago, Josiah Hesse, he said he used to go to Littleton to buy weed when he first moved here. He's like, that's where all my dealers were. That's funny. And then I had a back and forth with one of our followers, as well as Christopher Ingraham, who's a reporter writes on drug policy for the Washington Post, and they made the point that if you have a dry county that's dry from alcohol, then there's a legitimate study out there that says that those counties are more typical, have higher meth use. And you know, I mean, this is the Washington Post. This is a legitimate study we're talking about. And so, yeah, as a replacement or something. Mitch, what are your thoughts about this?
I think it's general fear. I just think it's general fear. The things that are legal today are clearly more dangerous than what is illegal. From alcohol to caffeine to tobacco. And those things are more readily available than the controlled dispensary process that we find today. So I think it's just general fear. And a little education. I think steps like the DEA recently trying to declassify cannabis from Schedule 1 below.
At least talking about considering it.
I think it's all part of what we say at Hi There, that the perception isn't changing, the perception's actually changed. And it's just going to take time for the education to take hold. But I think it's general fear.
If you want to go after Littleton directly, I mean, what is one of the greatest exports of Littleton is South Park, is Trey and Matt Stone. Those guys are the biggest potheads around. At least Matt is. I don't know, or maybe Trey. I forget. But I mean, yeah, aren't they proud of their hometowns? Yeah, the one with the curly. Aren't they proud of their hometown heroes? You know, every South Park episode's about how ridiculous some of these pot laws are and how harmless pot is. But
well, here we are in mid-2016. I'm curious if what you guys have to say about this, because did you think that if we legalized it and the sales started on Jan 1st, 2014, 2.5 years later, do you think that we would still be having these conversations at in such frequency? Or I'm curious, do you think we'd be here further or not quite here yet?
Go ahead.
I thought we'd be further. I thought we'd be further. But I think that might have just been naive as to maybe the trenches that were dug previously, right? So when I think I would like to be further, I'm actually pretty impressed we are where we are. And then I think Colorado is viewed as maybe an experiment for other states, and so I would really like us to get it darn well right, so that then we can broadcast the way it really works. So maybe torn, you know, in both areas.
I guess, you know, my perspective is, you know, having started in the industry before there was dispensaries and representing some of the first ones, I mean, I remember right back in 2007, 8, 9, when the first dispensaries were opening, the kind of, you know, fervent political opposition we faced, and kind of stubborn, even in the face of, we had a vote in 2010 to legalize under an ounce of marijuana statewide that didn't have a regulation system with it, but it gave us a snapshot of where people supported marijuana and didn't.
Sure.
And looking at the places where you would go to Eagle County and Vail and say, hey, 70% of your residents support this, and the politicians still said no. Or there was another small Eagle County town that, same thing, 70% supported it, but the town kept saying no.
Right.
I think it's that part of that political lack of advantage of stepping out and saying I'm pro-pot, and I think it calls all of us who support marijuana to support politicians who support our issue, to make them know it's okay to stand up in county assembly meetings and say, you know, what's your position on marijuana? Because until they tend to go to these chicken and pea fundraiser dinners and not hear from a lot of pro-marijuana people, even though a lot of people support it. And I think that's the political dilemma that we're stuck in, and so it doesn't surprise me at all that there's still this intransigence. But I actually am thrilled where we are. I think it's these few towns that are holding out. It stinks for them because they're not part of the fun.
It's fascinating watching this change. I was talking with a colleague of your guys' in the industry recently, and he was talking about a couple different races that are happening in this state in the next year, and he just kind of hinted. He's like, I'm cool with all of the candidates because they are all pro-cannabis. And I asked him, I was like, well, if we had the same conversation about the last time this race was up, and he's like, oh yeah, no, it was like, we like this guy because he's mostly on board, but now, you know, especially if you're here witnessing it, then they're on board.
All the presidential candidates that remain are pro-cannabis to a certain extent. And I love this Hillary Clinton line, well, we're waiting to see how it happens, and kind of like Mitch said, that it's working out fine in Colorado. So I think next presidential election they'll all be, aggressively for it. Right now, a little bit, tepid.
Gentlemen, we're switching gears. It's time for the pot quiz.
Oh boy.
Okay, so I hope you've sharpened your skills.
Oh boy.
Hope you did some research today, maybe. I'm sure you had plenty of time today just to peruse Twitter.
Can I get my Google out? No.
No, you can't, but we're starting with you, Sean. And how this works is if he misses the question, you get an opportunity to steal the point. Right. Vice versa. Starting with Sean.
Oh boy.
A writer with what American paper of record tweeted this week that his greatest work expense coup included credit card transactions for a medical marijuana exam, the cannabis itself, and some gear?
Well, if he was still alive, I would say Hunter S. Thompson, but since he's not alive...
So the question is, a writer with what paper?
With
what
paper?
American paper of record? So we're not asking you about the writer, I'm asking you about the paper. A writer
either
with
LA
what?
Times or New York Times, or maybe a Washington paper. I'll go New York Times.
New York Times is a ding. You got this.
Yes.
All right. Starting out strong. I like it.
Thank goodness.
Mitch, we're swinging over to you, man. Name one of the 2 Colorado cities that made headlines this week when they announced that they're using marijuana taxes to better fund their issues with the homeless.
Oh my goodness gracious. I'm going to pass that to you. Can't answer.
You don't have you want to throw out a guess?
I don't even want to throw out a guess. No.
All right, cool.
I don't want to step
Mitch.
that wrong, man. I don't want to step that wrong.
Something tells me Sean knows the answer to this
I remember
question.
that story, and it's like, every community is using it to help their budgets. It wasn't Denver. It was...
Just get it wrong and say
It is one of the 2 Colorado cities that made headlines this week with their announcements. So who announced it this week?
It's either Lakewood or Denver. I don't know. Denver.
No. Nobody gets the point.
Nobody.
It is Aurora.
Aurora.
A lot of money.
Sure.
Yeah.
And Pueblo just announced it today.
Yeah.
I think the county commissioners voted on it today, and they had some excesses and said, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. So back to Sean. All right. Sean, in March, offensive tackle Eugene Monroe became the first active NFL player to openly call for the use of cannabis to treat chronic pain and sports injuries. What team does Eugene Monroe play for?
Seattle Seahawks.
I like your, hey, I'm just going to go Seattle Seahawks, but no. Mitch, for the steal.
Dallas Cowboys.
Ah, good guess, but no.
No.
Oh, man. All right, I like it. You guys have a sports.
Weak. Too much time at the desk.
Too much work, man.
Too much work. Exactly.
It is Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, Baltimore.
Producer Vince, did you just, ugh.
I made a sound, yeah. It's that Pittsburgh in me, and I was born in Cleveland. They stole my team.
Is that about us or the team?
No, it was
Very much
the
dirty words.
We are bad.
Okay.
We got
This
1 out of 3.
might be a tough one.
Okay.
And it's yours, Mitch.
Great.
You can tie. Here we go.
As Canada moves forward with its attempt to legalize and regulate cannabis, how many international treaties will the country openly disregard in the process?
420.
A, 1. B is 2. 3 is C. D is 4. And E is 5. So you can just say the number 1 between 5.
B. I'm going with B.
2 treaties?
No.
Not right. But good guess. You know? Sean, what are you doing here, man? How many treaties are we disregarding in this process?
Definitely the international treaty against drug abuse. There's like 4. I'd say E5. Give me 5.
E5?
Yeah.
It is C.
Oh,
3.
Gosh.
According to the CBC,
Yeah.
which they're pretty legit, but you know, I don't know. It is interesting because you must remember these conversations when we were
yeah.
pushing
yeah.
64, and those conversations happened about what do we do? We're just going to disregard the UN and all these treaties?
Well, I love it because the justification was always like, oh, you can't change local law in Breck or Denver because then there's state law. Oh, you can't change state law because there's federal law. Oh, you can't change federal law because there's international law. And I think, is there a galactic law? Because, like, they won't let us change federal law either or international law because of galactic law?
There is, and you just broke it. Okay, Sean? You guys, this is so fun. Sean McAllister, Mitch Lane, thank you guys for joining me. Most importantly, I want to thank you guys for watching and listening to the Cannabist Show. We appreciate your tweets. Please drop us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, whatever platform you're listening to us on. Google Play. Hey, for your friends on Android, tell them we're on Google Play now. So, of course, I'm Ricardo Baca, joined by Eric and Vince and the rest of the crew. Hope you have a great day, everyone, and we will absolutely see you next week.
I'm allowed to lose, I choose to win, I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end, I'll say it again, ain't afraid to get in, I'll be going for the jackpot with ace in my hand, I'm raw.